Good night, everyone. Tonight, God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Irma J. I'm here to give you a word on tonight. And you remember I talk about Joseph Pharaoh's dream. And God had put in the dream for nobody but Joseph to get that job. So now Joseph's in charge. You know, his dream is finally coming to light. He been he was like 17 years old when God put that dream up in him. You see, so Genesis chapter 41, 57. Now, Pharaoh said to Joseph, you know, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. This somebody they had to pull out of prison, to interpret Pharaoh's dream. He interpreted his dream. Pharaoh said, I put you in charge. You in charge of the whole land of Egypt. So Pharaoh recognized that God's spirit is with Joseph. Make him second in command order, you know, second command over the entire nation. And he prepared for the famine. Because see, he explained to him what God said, or how to do this here. So then he gonna talk about you gotta go find somebody that's have the spirit of God to know how to do this here. And the man was standing right in front of you. So he recognized Joseph and put Joseph in charge. So then Pharaoh had took his signing ring, from his fingers and put it on Joseph's finger. Now he dress him in robe, fine clothes, and put gold chains around his neck. Now he took care of Joseph. Now Joseph gonna be walking around here like a queen, like a king. He got the ring on, he got the purple clothes and stuff on. So he demonstrated Joseph new position. That's how you do it. He demonstrate Joseph new position in authority. Pharaoh had give Joseph his own ring. You remember? He to give him his own ring. And this was used to the sign of seal document. So Joseph also received fine clothes and gold chains around his neck. So you'll be glad to work for Pharaoh. Pharaoh give you your clothes, he give you a ring, you know, and he give you jewelry put around your neck. So he hooking Joseph up. So he had him riding in a carrier as his own second in command. And people had shouted before him and make a way. Though he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Now he riding on that carrier. Now Joseph getting a tour around the land. You don't find too many, gonna take the time and train you and ride you around and he's showing him the whole part of Egypt because it's big. It's big. So Joseph is taken out in public, riding in the street to demonstrate his authority and his presence. So everywhere Joseph go, people are made to kneel as a sign of respect. Now, who said? So God gave Joseph this job. God gave Joseph this permission. You know, even though, Pharaoh is in charge, but God put that dream in him, knowing nobody but Joseph were able to proceed this job. So when everybody saw him now, they bowed down to him. They bowed down, showing respect, submission. Joseph's position as a ruler is in charge. He in charge. Pharaoh ain't waste no time. Showing him around, riding him in a carrier. You got to ride it, because Egypt is so big. So then Pharaoh had said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, but without your word, no one will lift a hand or foot in all Egypt. And that's how it is. If you're gonna put somebody in charge, even though you're the head Everybody got to go to that person. And if that person not available, then you're supposed to go to the head. So Pharaoh has said everybody got to go to you. Whatever you say goes. So Joseph had total authority and matter that there is nothing, however small, or the nation which Joseph cannot command, or control. Now he is empowered to redirect all resources of the entire nation, the purpose of preparing the land for devastation, famine, hating their way. Now you're gonna get the abundance first, but right after, you're gonna get famine, so that's why they're gonna have Joseph. Joseph gonna be he gonna know just what to do, just what to do. So Pharaoh had give Joseph a name. Give him a name. Uh, I can't zapping it, cause I can't pronounce it, y'all. He give him a name, a Egyptian name, and give him a Egyptian daughter, for his wife, the priest, and to be his wife. So, and Joseph was throughout the land of Egypt. Now, Pharaoh may have been trying to make Joseph more acceptable to the Egyptian, so he a Jew, and these he own a land of Egyptian, and they may not he may not understand, Joseph may not even has said Joseph, so they give him a name that Egyptian will have no problem saying, by giving him an Egyptian name and Egyptian wife, making Joseph sound like he belongs in Egypt. See, Pharaoh trying to make it comfortable for him. That's how you do. He got the spirit of God on him. And he want to make him comfortable as possible because he figure he next to God. If God can communicate with him and interpret all them dreams and then give him a meaning to him, and nobody but God give him that, reveal that to him, he gonna treat him with all kind of respect. And he want to make him comfortable, And so Pharaoh arranged for Joseph to be married, and then to a powerful Egyptian family. So Joseph was 30 years old. He was 30 years old, and he first started working, and when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and Joseph had went from Pharaoh present and traveled throughout Egypt. It take him like 2 or 3 days just to travel. He had to let them know I'm in charge. I'm coming around, check out everything. It take like 2 or 3 days to ride on that cab and check all the all the areas. Because Egypt is just that big. Now Joseph was 30 years old when he becomes second in command. In Egypt, the age 17. So he started at 17 when he was thrown in a pit. He was sold into slavery, and from his brothers. And he had spent 13 years as an Egyptian slave, you know, and in prison, and now he in charge over the whole Egypt land. So at this point, Joseph will spend most of his adult life, as either in prison or a slave, because you're like 20 some years later, so he like 30 some years, so it was like 20 some years later, he got his position, just like God had said he would. He was gonna be in charge of a whole. God didn't tell him what. God gonna tell you stories and partial, but he never interpret his own dream. Everything is coming into pass now, clearly. Now he thought he was wasting, you know, and sometimes we feel like that. And so many years have passed, and you be thanking God forgot, but God ain't forget. Just like He ain't forget the Israelite. Took 400 years, but He heard every cry they said. He heard. Now he feel like he thought his life was wasted. you know, but reverse quickly. You know, his time was not wasted because God, God reversed it quickly. He started working on Pharaoh. See, God started working behind the scene. He started working on Pharaoh first. Let's get this job together. Cause I'm ready for this to abundance, and I'm ready for the famine to come. And I had promised this to Joseph at 17 years old. So let's get move this here quickly. So God had reversed it quickly. As he wasn't because God came through. So God came through. God had a plan and a purpose for Joseph's life. And it about to start moving. It about to come to light. So all the long days and weeks, all along, he thought his life was just being wasted. He was thrown in a pit. And he was picked up out of the pit and then being sold as slaves. As being a slave, he got lied on. About get put in jail. Serve all that time for a lie. But some kind of way, God said, it's about time for him to come out. My child is not, he didn't do none of that stuff. And he got to come out, so he came out. Along days, weeks, all that happened in days and weeks and months and years. And God was working behind the scene, waiting for a divine time. And see, when God, he be waiting for a divine time, and some kind of reason, you still be on time. You feel like time is wasted. Joseph said time is wasted. My time was wasted. He thought it was gone. Said no. God said we just about to get started. We just about to get started. This is divine time right here. So Joseph had received power and authority, from Pharaoh, but represented by God. He like I said, he received this position. He received authority. He received power, but it all came from God. So during the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plenty. They in 7 years of abundance given and stored for themselves. But have preparation for the 7 years famine is in the land. It gonna follow right behind it. So Joseph had collect all the food, produce all these 7 years, and all the abundance of Egypt, and store it, and in the city, in each he put the full grain in the field surrounding it. So he knew exactly what to do. So Joseph had used his authority, and gathered and stored massive amount of grains. Now he built his during his 7 years abundance. Called then be assessed with famine stickers. Famine is right behind. Even though you're gonna get so much, they're gonna get so much abundance. It is gonna be coming so fast, so he ain't gonna be able to keep up with it. But he's still gonna know what to do as it's coming through. Georgia store of huge quality, of grains, like the sand of the sea. Now it was so much that he had to stop keeping record because it was beyond matches. God made sure they had enough, because the family gonna be behind. So when everybody run out, they still gonna have food. Because they got somebody like Joseph know how to organize inventory, know how to store, so he gonna know what to do. And he starts setting aside portion of the abundance of the first 7 years. Now, Joseph is helping to provide for the people during the 7 years of famine. Now before years of famine, came two sons was born, into Joseph, from his wife. You know, he had now this in a mixer, all kinds of stuff. So now he trying to store, and he got so much food coming in, in the mix of all that, he still made two children. you know And so her father was a priest in a town of, and then a center for worship of the sun. Joseph, these two sons are served as another reminder that the Lord is still with him. Now God made sure he made a family, you know. And so he felt like his life was wasted, you know, and God trying to show him, you know, I give you a job. You got a wife, you know, you got children. So you made a family, you know, your time ain't passing, you know, you got children now. You got a wife now, you know. And you got your job, I promise to you. You know, so his life ain't wasted, you know, God giving him piece by piece. You know, so Joseph named his first son Mahana. You know, these are Egyptian name. You know, so the second son named Erab. You know, and say if it is because of God had made the first son, the name means something. You know, so the first son means that he said it is because God had made me forget all my trouble and all my father household. You know, because he was still thinking about, you know, his family and think he's dead, you know, and his brothers, you know, what they did to him. You know, they lied to their fathers that he got killed by the animal. You know, he was still thinking about them for all the many years. You know, he's still thinking about his family. You know, so he say, by God to give me this job, God to give me a family. He just made me forget about my household. You know, and so the second son, Erab, you know, said, if it because this is meaning of his name, you know, God had made me fruitful in the land of my suffering. Now, he was thinking about his family. You know, he was his father, Jacob favorite. You know, and then then he was still in his suffering. That's how you could be. You know, you can be thinking about all the stuff that you went through. He thought about all, he felt in a pit, pushed in a pit. He was in prison. He was a slave. He think about that all these years. He wondered why my father have not come look for me. And so he doesn't know. They told him he was dead. But he still should have went out and looked for him in the field. So in all that pain, all that suffering, God still made him fruitful. So that's why this boy's second child name means something. It means fruitful in the land of my suffering. In a mix of all that, God still gave him a family. So Joseph had trust God, even in affliction and fruitful. And he named his firstborn Messiah and a second Israel. For God had made me fruitful in a land of affliction. And so the 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end. The 7 years came to an end. Now you come into to the famine. Now. And so now nobody's not gonna have no food. They're all gonna come to him. Because you see, that's why God had plenty food to come to him. And so Joseph storing up, so they all gonna come to him for food. Because they're the only ones still gonna have food. And so for God had made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. The 7 years is about to end. Now after the 7 years, the amazing prosperity in Egypt will come to an end. So I hope they enjoy all that abundance, because remember they had so much they had to stop keeping count. The famine had begun, and that bad news for that. So the bad news was for the region, but it proves that God's fruitfulness, to and through Joseph once more. So in the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said, there was famine in all the other land. But in the whole land of Egypt, there was food. There was food. Now just see Joseph predict this Pharaoh dream and plan out just like Joseph said. You're gonna have 7 years of famine. And then and you're gonna have 7 years of famine. So Joseph had proved to be right. They had 7 years of abundance, and now famine. A star famine affliction all surrounded land. Egypt still had food due to Joseph's preparation during the 7 years of abundance that God wanted Joseph to be in charge. Now he did a good job of preparing and stored food. He did a good job because see, they're the only ones still have food. And when all the Egyptians, began to feel the famine, now the people cried out to Pharaoh, for food. It lasts long as it can. It wasn't gonna last for the whole 7 years, but it lasts long as it can. So Pharaoh had told all the Egyptians, go to Joseph, and tell him. So just like Pharaoh said, Pharaoh said, you have any problem, y'all gotta go to Joseph. They come to him, then we don't have no food. So he said, you go to Joseph. He the second command. Go to Joseph and tell him what y'all need. So apparently Joseph did not begin distributing the store of grain immediately after the famine hit. He waited for the people to begin to ask, for help from Egyptian government. And see, that was a smart move. Wait till all the food run out. You ain't want to be giving all the stuff out all at one time, and then it would have been gone faster. So he waited for it to be gone and waited for them to complain, and then distribute the food to them. So people went to king first, and he did direct them to go to Joseph and do whatever he tell you to do. So when the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt. So it's all getting severe in Egypt. Then he lasts the food long as he can. Joseph exercised his authority, and opened up the storehouse from the previous 7 years of abundance. So all the world came to Egypt, to buy grain, from Joseph because the famine was so severe everywhere, and so this job was fit for Joseph. And for some reason, God knows when something is just fit for you, and he did a good job, 7 years of abundance, so 7 years of famine started, and they still had food, and just ran out now, and so Joseph did a good job. Joseph was 17 years old when God put in his dream, that you're gonna be in charge. He didn't know what God was talking about. What, being in charge of what? Because when he was in Egypt, when he first got there to Egypt, he still don't know. It really the parts of his dream gonna start falling in place like the job did, and then when his family come, it gonna start falling in place because when they come see him, they're gonna bow down. And remember they say, I'm not gonna bow down. What you think somebody gonna bow down to you? They ain't gonna recognize Joseph. They're gonna bow down when they say they wasn't gonna bow down. So this God work in silence, behind the scene on Joseph's behalf. So God silently working in Joseph's life. Joseph could have grown bitter, inflamed, and by the dreadful circumstance of his life. But he didn't. Anybody could have been mad, could have been frustrated, have all this stuff supposed to come, and then you in a pit, then you sold for slave, and then you got lied on and thrown in prison, but he still wasn't bitter. you know. And after all, he had been sold into slavery by his own brothers at the age of 17 and then sent to prison after refusing to sleep with his master's wife. Finally, after circumstances into something good, at the age of 30, Joseph experienced a new beginning. Because, see, that's when he started his job. He started his job at 30 years old. That's when his life began. You know, that's when his life began. He had a family. He got a wife. He got two children. And a mix of all that is going on. And sometimes God can give you peace some kind of way in all the mix of that drama. That's why they always say smile, smile. God can always reverse it. He said, I'm reversing this here. And I'm about to reverse this here quickly. And he did work quickly. And when Joseph would predict that dream, and predict what you're supposed to do and all this kind of stuff, Joseph was fit for that job. He did a good job. He stored the food was supposed to be stored, and he give out to what he supposed to give out. So experience, that was a new beginning for Joe. After he thought his life was wasted, and God gave him a new beginning. A new beginning, a new family, a new job. So he rose to the promise of when in Pharaoh saved the nation from famine, and was blessed with a family of his own. And that was a blessing. Now Joseph's son name described of his life story. Manasseh, the first son, God had made him forget all his trouble. The second son, Israel, God made him fruitful in the land of his suffering. The land where he suffered. You remember he was a slave first before he got thrown in prison. And now, he made a family in the mix. A lot of time, God will take you back where you've been suffering at. And bless you right there. And bless you in all kind of ways. Joseph is starting his new family. Starting his new family. In the midst of that suffering. In the mix of, he made him forget about his household, forget about his brothers, forget that they're throwing him in a pit, and first thing, he wondering why my dad didn't come look for me, and so Joseph experienced God's silence work as much in slavery and in prison as he did when he rose to position being in charge, just like God said he would. And so his story, his dream is just not falling into place, and the rest of it gonna fall in place when his brothers now come to visit him, so whatever our circumstance is, we have to trust God. I'm talking to myself. We have to trust God. You will see how, and we see the story, of Joseph. That's why you got to read. That's why a lot of time you have to read these stories. Sometimes it'll be a effect of your life. Sometimes it'll be a effect of your life. And so the circumstance is trust God. You will see how God will work silence in your life behind the scene. Just like, he did for Joseph. Joseph had went through a lot at 17 years old, and then without your father, and you was close with your father, that's a hard thing, because he done went through something. He was close with his father. He was close with his father and his little brother. That was the only two for their mama. All the rest of them children for different wives. He had about 10, 12 children, other children. But for that boy to go through something, at 17 years old, Joseph went through a lot. Before he got into a position, sometime to get the good stuff, you have to go through so much. You have to go through so much. You know, Joseph thought his life was wasted. All them years. It took 20 years. His life just began. And it was a blessing. He had made family. You know, he would have a job. You know, and so the position, and sometimes God will take you through the wilderness before he set you on top. Let me say that again. Sometimes God will take you through that wilderness, you know, before he take you to the top. Look at all that stuff Joseph went through. All in the mix of the 20 years. That's why he thought his life was being wasted. He thought that was it. You know, he'd have been thrown in the pit by his own brothers. People scope him up out of there. God got somebody to get him out of there. But he thinking he going home, but he become to be a slave. You know, the master wife following him around, you know, stalking him, being close to him. And he said no. And then he said no, and he thrown in a pit. Now imagine all that he gone through. And a boy that started out at 17 years old. Thank God that he had strength to keep going. Thank God he didn't get bitter and get mad. But he still had God by his side, giving him strength, giving him courage. You know, he didn't give up. You know, and so when God see he didn't get better, he didn't get mad. Okay, it's time for me to start working behind the scenes and get him out of there. You know, and God give him his life. His life start beginning at 30 years old. Knew his first job. You know, so that's all I have for you today. Ooh, Lord, that touched me. You know, Joseph, imagine him, 17 years old, real close with his father. You know, imagine his father gone. His brother's not there. You know, he by himself trying to survive the best way he can. And I think that boy did a hell of a fine job. You know, he raised himself to be a young man. You know, and now he is a husband, you know, and a father. You know, so that's all I have for you today. You know, remember, God gonna take you to the wilderness. You know, you got to go through so much to get to the top. You know, but then at the end, you know, it was worth it. Because God gonna give him a family, you know, children, everything else in a mix of that. In a mix of that circumstances. In a mix of that living, you know, it turned out to be good. You know, so that's all I have for you today. And y'all have a blessed and safe night.